Welcome and thank you everyone for joining our webinar, Future Horizons in Finance for Professional Services. My name is Tracy Thompson and I will be facilitating our webinar today. Happy to have y'all. Before we get started, I have a few tips on using the Zoom platform, just in case anyone's not aware, but I'm sure most people are. This is so you can engage with the presenters and have the best experience possible. You should see the following icons on your Zoom toolbar: ask a question, chat, and raise your hand. You can use the ask a question in chat to submit a question at any time for our presenters. If you need any assistance with anything, go ahead and click the raise hand and I'll connect with you as soon as I can. We do encourage you to ask questions throughout the entire presentation and we will address the questions towards the end of the webinar. If you experience any audio issues, you can access your audio settings and test your audio when you're already in the meeting. At the bottom left-hand corner of the Zoom meeting toolbar, you'll find either the headphones or the microphone logo to join audio or mute, unmute. Go ahead and click join audio to choose to connect to your computer audio or dial in using a phone. Once your audio is connected, just go ahead and click mute to disable the audio or unmute to enable. Just as a reminder, we will be sending out a link and an email to download the slide deck as well as the recorded presentation, usually within 72 hours. Usually quicker than that, but you will get the recording. For our agenda today we will be going over some CPE requirements and housekeeping, our introductions for our presenters, future of finance, the challenges and why we made the change, a roadmap in their tech stack, lessons learned, and what we would change. So good stuff going on here today. So we do have today's webinar does qualify for one standard CPE credit, which is super exciting. In order to qualify, you do need to respond to all of the polling questions and stay on for the entire duration of the webinar. If you have any technical difficulties answering the polling questions, please email elevatelearn@armaninollp.com with your name, date, and name of the webinar and your responses to the polling questions. So our learning objections for today's webinar include: recognize when you're ready to make the change, hear perspectives from a CFO and controller why the move was necessary, review examples of timeline, roadmaps, and phased approaches in the journey forward. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters. We have Justin Minikis, Director of Consulting at Armanino, John Cogan, our CFO at Armanino, and Carrie Augustine, the Head of Finance Transformation at Workday. Justin and John, Carrie, do you guys want to give a little short intro? I'll start with you, Justin.
Sure. Thank you, Tracy. Hey, everyone, I'm Justin. As Tracy mentioned, I lead our HCM and financials delivery practice here at Armanino. And so Armanino, we're privileged, we're a Workday Services partner. So we help clients evolve and transform their technology journey, but also internally, we are users of the Workday platform. So nice to meet you all and look forward to discussing the topic. John, over to you.
Great, thanks, Justin. John Cogan, CFO of Armanino. I've been the CFO 7 times in my career. I've been part of probably too many ERP implementations, from QuickBooks right on up to the biggest systems out there, and now Workday. So we'll relive a bit of that journey today and hopefully answer some questions for folks.
And I'm Carrie Augustine. I am from Workday. I lead finance transformation here. I am a CPA and former corporate controller at a software and professional services organization. So excited to join in on the conversation.
Great. Thank you, guys. We're super excited to have all of you here today. And with that, I'll go ahead and kick it off with the polling question number 1. Sorry, hold on a second. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see the polling question?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry. Okay, hold on. No? I'm so sorry. I'm just gonna go ahead and with this, and I'll figure out another one after. We'll have to switch it around. Sorry about that. Do you guys
We
see
can
that
it
one?
now.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I usually read these too. It's not my day. Do you have a dedicated CPM budgeting and reporting system for your FP&A? Yes, no, or not sure. All right. And I'll stop the polling here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Here's the results. We got.
Not much of a surprise there. Small to mid-sized companies frequently Excel is their CPM platform. So we've got a mix of folks on here, and I guess it's heartening to see 52% do so, or just interesting. Certainly appropriate at certain sizes, and Excel is great when you're small.
Great, thanks, John.
Yeah, nice. Certainly nice to see that number of people that do have a system in place. A lot of times it is a system if there is one to choose before the larger HR finance transformation. A lot of times this is one area that we see clients go to first. So pleasantly surprised on that one.
Yeah, thanks. All right, I'll go ahead and kick off the presentation.
All right, so let's start off with what we see as the future of finance. So I'm going to start with a more traditional finance organization and what that typically looks like. So I work with customers all across the United States, and typically, when I see a traditional finance organization, I acknowledge and they acknowledge that 80% of their time is sort of spent on processing transactions, whether it's AR and AP, creating manual journal entries, performing account reconciliations, and of course, preparing reports in a manual way. And so once that is all said and done, once the team spends the time doing those manual, more monotonous tasks, we often see that only 5% of the time is spent on analyzing the results or really kind of partnering with the business. And so in terms of the future of work, you can jump to the next slide here. So in terms of the future of work, what we're really seeing organizations gravitate towards is the processing of transactions is more automated. Therefore, folks are able to analyze, interrogate the data, understand what's happening in their business, and really kind of flip the work on its head in terms of where they're spending time. So rather than, more transaction processing, once they have automated, they're spending time on, understanding the changes or the flux analysis and sitting down with, maybe it's the head of marketing and saying, here's what's happening. Here is, what is most profitable in terms of campaigns or events that you are running. And so that's where we really see the work being sort of transition to in terms of, those transaction processing and collection to insights and more action. And so I imagine the folks on the line today are thinking, well, how is this possible? How is it possible to spend the vast majority of our time doing that and automating? And so, just a couple quick examples here, and I'll have John chime in to kind of provide his perspective on this as well, but a couple quick examples in terms of what we are seeing. So rather than manually billing and recognizing the revenue, setting up on a contract, the billing and revenue rules, and kind of a set it and forget it model. And then in terms of, collections, leveraging a automated dunning as well as cash application. And the cash application, we often see folks leveraging things like machine learning and intelligence to automate as much as possible. So as a former controller, I would always look at and see where are the ways in which we can automate as much as possible and then spend time providing more value back into the business. And so As we go throughout this conversation today, I challenge everybody on the line to kind of think about that and jot down or write down ways in which you can imagine a system working for you more than it is today, or a process being refined more than it is today, to get to that place where you're spending the time on actions and insights. And so, John, I'd love to kind of hear from you, your perspective on how much of a factor this was in your decision for change.
Yeah, so having the ability to do not just real time, but anytime analysis, and having the bandwidth to do that was a decision factor for us. We have well over 200 partners at the firm, so they're all business leaders of some sort or other, and they don't care what time of the month it is. They don't care where you are in the close cycle. They've got questions now. They want answers today. So that maelstrom that you showed on the prior slide really is what's going on. We get all manner of requests all the time. Of course, we're trying to get in front of that with our reporting and also with providing time access to data through our various platforms and tools. But you can't absorb half your month plus in the close and expect to just answer your questions within a week or 10 days, because then the next close comes up. It just never ends. So every day that we're in the close and that our team broadly is absorbed in the close, myself and my leadership team deems as kind of a waste, because we want our folks working directly with the business people across our firm, answering those questions, adding value, providing actionable insight. So that's the top of this pyramid. So every month we're working to get better and faster and more automated, so we can have more and more time available to tackle not just the ad hoc questions that come in any day, but also we've got a huge list of things that we're trying to do to forever improve our processes and outcomes, et cetera. So it's really all about going from the little slice to the vast majority of your time providing actionable insight.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John and Carrie, both. So shifting course a little bit, talking about why make the change and when is the right time to make the change. So I noted at the top of the call, not only does Armanino help clients implement and support Workday, internally, we are on our own journey. So John, would love to hear from you the challenges that Armanino was facing as a collective business that ultimately drove us to deploy and implement the full suite of Workday products.
Yeah, happy to. Just at a high level, it's been a growth company for many years now. We're a rapid growth firm, both organically and via M&A. And as we grew, so did our technology infrastructure. Like an octopus, it was just all over the place, many different platforms. We built a complex ecosystem to meet our sort of ever increasing needs. But over time, these systems became siloed, rigid, requiring a lot more oversight, full entry for the same data, the kind of stuff that drives you crazy, leads to and just makes you slower. So we needed things that most companies constrained by technology and experiencing rapid growth need. A single source of truth, like that was extremely key to what we were going for here. Reliable real-time reporting with lots of useful metadata. And when I say data, that's the data surrounding the data, so that you can slice and dice anything, any way you might possibly need to do that. Also allows for better automation. So real-time metadata, efficiency across all of our financial processes. There's a number of organizations within the office of the CFO that need to work together in order to be providing that great insight to our business leaders. Automation wherever possible. Once again, making the mundane manual tasks as minimal as possible, allowing for the greatest use of our people's time. for their highest calling. That's the high value analysis and action-based insights. Also, more sane time and billing. This business spends an awful lot of time on time management and client billing, and that just was not scaling at all for us. And also, we needed a unified system for HR and the people side of our business. So how can we unify all of this? And it affects all of these challenges here on the page. We were literally having trouble getting bigger. We're being dragged down by our own size as we were growing. And you cannot scale processes linearly at any company. And we were having real challenges. I mean, our close timing was approaching a month before we got into this. There was just so many steps and so many checkpoints and repeated data. It was just becoming a drag on our ability to grow. And you can't allow the back office at all to be a drag on the business. We have to be enablers. Operational inefficiencies, we were seeing those, unfortunately, aplenty. I've already mentioned a couple times having to put the same data in multiple systems. Then you've got all sorts of QC problems, drives everyone crazy. And when our business leaders are saying, hey, I see data on 2 different reports and it's different. A, that's embarrassing. And as a finance leader, you never want to see that. That's just awful. And then B, you recognize there's underlying issue there that really needs to be ferreted out. A lot of that comes from this whole multi-system, octopus I mentioned earlier. There's just a lot of complexity. Increase in time to process and report, that is just the greatest thing. If we could fully automate all of the mechanics of our transactional reporting, everything on the GL side and all of our reporting itself, the automated reporting, gosh, that would just leave us free all day, every day to answer our internal client questions and do other things better. So we had a real yen to do that. Issues, I think I've already hit on a couple of times, just embarrassing and crazy. Oh, also with some of our older systems, they're really difficult to self-serve. You want people to self-serve. It's not just, don't bother my people, do it yourself. It's because it's a lot easier. So I've run a number of businesses, including within our current firm, my current firm, Armanino, before I transitioned to the CFO role. And the more you can self-serve, the faster you can move. And we simply didn't have anywhere near all of the tools and infrastructure that we wanted to enable that. And lastly, it's all about providing these actionable insights. We just weren't there. So lots of challenges stack up for us.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Carrie, how about from your standpoint in your role, where do you see CFOs thinking and what challenges are they facing that are causing them to kind of look at a new enterprise-wide platform?
Yeah, I would say that typically what you see on the left-hand side of this slide are the reasons why, or the burning issues that folks are typically looking to address. On the right-hand side, you can see more of where they're wanting to go. So as I talked about earlier, you have to automate before you have the time to actually analyze the data, sit down and understand what's happening, what's happening in the business. So I would say for the most part, when we are talking with folks, it's getting to the heart of scalability. For example, a company may have done an acquisition recently and has plans to do, more acquisitions. We also definitely hear from folks when they're looking to go public and they need to have they need to have a platform that will enable them to put controls in place in a streamlined way. And then I would say, last but not least, this is also something that I have noticed within the past, I would say 5 years. I think about 5 years ago, there was a desire to have the best of breed, to have the best of the best in terms of capabilities and quality. But what I have seen in terms of a trend is that folks have been moving away from that a little bit. So they were looking at for the bells and whistles, but now they're a little bit more cautious because they know what that means in terms of, they have to support integrations, and they have, those systems have different data models and different records. So you have to, make sure that you rationalize the data, and, also just the challenge of any sort of changes. So permeating changes throughout all these systems can be quite challenging. And then I would also say, one of the other things that we typically hear is around the many systems in place, those systems are good for processing a transaction, but they are sort of disconnected from the GL. So a great example of this is a lot of times I'm talking with customers that have Coupa, for example, and that's a great built for purpose application. But, you have to think about, well, what are the types of transactions? So you have a fixed asset. So will you have to record, something as a fixed asset versus, an expense? And, also there's things that occur from a spend perspective, like, spend allocations or any intercompany charges that you might expect to record in the GL. So those are the types of things I typically see that those built for purpose solutions don't incorporate, and companies are trying to figure out how to then record them either through integrations or manual processes in between in terms of recording in the GL.
Thank you. Thanks, Kurt. All right, so we have there we go. Polling question number 2. That was great information. Thank you both for your input on that. Here we go. Sorry, hold on a second. All right, here we go. You can see it up. What is the average age of your ERP system? 0 to 5 years, 6 to 12 years, 12 years plus? Not sure. Give just a few seconds here for everyone to answer. Since we are offering CPE, we want to get everyone's answers in. Remember, you do have to answer all polling questions for CPE credit. All right, looks like the polling has slowed down. I'm going to go ahead and end it and share the results. Looks like 0 to 5 years and 40%. You guys want to have any comments on the results here?
A lot of fresh ERP platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're at 12 plus, now you're looking at systems that are on old architecture, makes it a lot tougher. In so many ways, it's harder to throw hooks into it and other systems. So that's usually when you're a little behind the 8 ball and playing catch up. And 6 to 12 is usually when you want to be thinking about your next move.
Great, thanks, John. All right, move along here. The roadmap to success.
All right. So we heard and we started this with kind of what the future of finance looks like and where the profession is headed. And then we talked a little bit about the why behind making the change and what some of those challenges are. So now let's shift our focus a little bit, John, and talk about the how behind the change. So how do we put a framework and a roadmap in place to make the change a success?
Yeah, well, like a lot of companies, this change was a long time coming, and then it happened pretty quickly, as it were. But there were a number of years where this was a topic of discussion. We had a couple older platforms sitting at and near the center of our technology stack, and we had a pretty good sense of what it was going to take to make the move, which is a lot of time and dollars to invest, that it was potentially going to be disruptive to the business, A lot of big things, none of which you want to take lightly or can afford to take lightly. So we definitely spent some years kind of easing our way up to this. And then we spent, the year prior really getting serious. Once we got to a decision point and had all of our ROIs together, and really felt convicted, highly convicted at every level of the business. We decided to make the move. And then, it was run. So the who is involved is, I think, even with each passing phase, and just so folks know, we've gone through the initial phases of our Workday implementation. Last year, we did the HR and financial components to Workday, and right now we're right in the middle of the professional services automation, actually more than in the middle. We're a couple months away from launching, so we're really getting down to it here. What's become clear is that a lot of people need to be involved. The entire firm, thousands of people are stakeholders in what's going on, and most of them actually directly touch the system one way or the other, whether it's entering expenses through T&E module, certainly time entry, billing. Of course, the GL team and the finance organization are in this thing all the time, every day. And resources is just far and wide. And I think up front, there's this tendency to want to be, respectful of everyone's time, and let's not bother them with all of this. And one key lesson that we learned was bother people. You don't want 100 people in every meeting, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of meetings over the course of years. And you don't want to blow up everyone's calendar, but it's a bigger mistake to not include people, because then what happens is you're making architecture decisions that don't have the right voices in the room. And that is a killer. Not only is it hard to recover from, logically speaking, because now you've got to go back and redo things and add integrations, and it's a nightmare, but you're actually just forgetting key stakeholders. So a key part of the whole contemplating the move and creating a roadmap is understanding that you're going to end up blowing up almost every process that exists in your company, and rebuilding them, usually within the framework of the platform that you're contemplating. That's an awful lot of work. You want to make sure you've got the right folks in the room. So if I had any counsel on who is involved, cast the net more broadly early on. You can always, include or not include people down the road in operational meetings, et cetera, but make sure you've got the right voices in the room. Then, of course, we created a roadmap, and thousands of lines worth of Gantt charts, and they varied from high level to low level, really on the ground things. And wow, is there a lot to it? I mean, it's exactly as invasive as you would imagine, and it's extremely painful and burdensome. And you really do need to contemplate things like how are the folks who have to work in these systems day to day going to continue doing their day-to-day work and help us move to an ERP system. You really have to have this mapped out. So it's not just the technology and the integrations, but also the human side of that roadmap. We spent an awful lot of time, lots of iterations doing that. It all paid off, massively when it came time to implementation, which was still a crazy struggle. But you really want to get in front of all of that. Let's go ahead and click the next one here. All right, entry technology. We're going to see this. We've got a couple slides which show, parts of our stack. And yeah, that octopus I mentioned earlier. We use a lot of technology. We still use some technology outside of Workday, quite a bit. And Workday is wonderful in that it does consolidate so many critical pieces of what we do and what we need, but still not everything all the time, which is fine. That's fair. It just is what it is. But you really do have to contemplate not just the tool itself, the move to Workday, it's all of these other pieces. And actually, we found the long pole in the tent frequently were those other pieces. Do they work with Workday? How long are the integration processes? Do they fit into our new processes as contemplated within Workday? Really complex. So don't sleep on the complementary technology. And then, yeah, gosh, remapping all of the affected processes, which is everything. Nothing is untouched. It's going to take longer, be more invasive. Just imagine everything. Essentially, you're starting from zero, and you want to start from zero. I mean, you really don't want to start from zero because it's a lot of work and it's intimidating. But if you're not taking the time up front to reimagine what the process should be, could be, then all you're doing is reducing your ROI, and you're actually probably making the implementation harder. So take the time and the pain up front to do this, and everything will just be better and work better down the road. And then this last piece, number 6, it is the most important piece, communication. I mentioned, down in number 2, who is involved? Well, darn near everyone. So explaining to folks why are we doing this? What's the investment going to be, which is their time or their people's time, and what's the return on that going to be, which is all the goodness you want to get out of making a move like this. And there needs to be a full communication plan. It's not just a perfunctory, hey, we're launching next month and there's a training next Tuesday kind of thing. There's so much to communicate. These are invasive processes. So you want to have a full plan with redundant communication, lots of channels. Someone absolutely needs to own communication, and then there need to be multiple folks working with that person who kind of own communication within each of the organizations, et cetera. You simply will not succeed. You're going to upset a lot of people through this process regardless, but the better you do at communicating, smoother it's going to be. So that was our roadmap. I'm happy to say we've actually stuck to most of it, and we have had emergencies and red stoplights and all the craziness, but we had a plan, and we've mostly stuck to the plan, and it's actually kind of mostly working. So that's good. All right, I mentioned a little bit earlier some of our tech stack. We've got a bit of a before and after. Here's some of the before. So on the left-hand side, we had these, and frankly, more systems. These were just some of the more sort of primary major systems that we were using. And they were all, fine to great in their own way. They just weren't working for us as we scaled, and I mentioned that earlier. And the idea was to replace them pretty much whole hog with Workday. And if we can go one more here. So now, this isn't a slam dunk either. This isn't even the entire stack that we currently have. But imagine, instead of having just one Workday sitting at the center of it, imagine having 6 major systems sitting at the center of this. Oh my gosh, the multitude of data connections and data maintenance that had to be maintained and then revved anytime we wanted to change something. We were pretty much trapped. And that's not a place you want to be, because we're a growth-oriented firm, and you can't be trapped by your system. So we were trapped by 8 systems, and moving to Workday allowed that sort of data centricity and concentration that allowed us to essentially break the logjam and get back into unfettered growth territory. So a tremendous just leap forward for the firm. And I know this still looks complex, but really the core of what we're doing day in, day out across our human resources organization, across the finance organization, it's Workday. Carrie, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, just a quick note. The first step that you talked about, John, in your process was contemplating the move. A lot of times when I work with companies, they start in this visual of their systems landscape, because a big part of that is, what systems do we have? Why do we need to make the move? And a part of developing an ROI or maybe a case for change is either, the systems that they have. For example, I talked about earlier, like Coupa. the system might work, really well, but the cost for integrations and the manual steps that need to be taken to figure out the GL impact for those transactions could be significant. So a lot of times when people are thinking about that switch, they do kind of start here in the visual to see what do they have, and are those systems working for them to quantify, what would be the impact to the business should they, consolidate systems and minimize those costs of integration.
Thank you both. That was awesome. On to polling question 3 here. All right. How many business applications support your finance team today? 1 to 5 systems, 6 to 10 systems, 11 plus systems. And again, just as a reminder, we will be sending out recording and slides of this presentation. I'll give a few more seconds here. If you do want CPE, just a reminder to answer the polling questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here and share the results.
I would bet that a lot of those 6 to 10s are underestimates, because once you really dive in and are contemplating a move like this, boy, that's when you really find what you're dependent upon. I find the 11 plus for entities of significant size, very typical these days. It's really kind of surprising with, especially all the sort of SaaS-based platforms, they just come out of the woodwork when you're doing a process like this. There may be a lot more complexity than perhaps you might think off the top of your head.
Awesome, thanks, John. All right, lessons learned.
All right. So we've covered the why behind making a change. We just talked about the how we go about structuring making the change. Now let's talk a little bit about the lessons that we've learned applying and going through the process. So John, would certainly love to hear from you on what lessons have we learned so far throughout our journey deploying Workday at Armanino.
Yeah, process re-engineering. Yeah, that bullet, boy. There was just very little other than even actually some of the direct client delivery is being altered insofar as, how we bill our clients and a lot of the process around billing and collections. That touches every client and everyone in our firm who's client facing. And those are just best to kind of recognize up front. You really have to raise your view beyond, the GL. For instance, and recognize that these are all good things. The bad thing is the work. There's a lot of work to be done up front, but there's just a tremendous amount of payoff. And as we're looking at, higher automation and deeper integration in things like time entry and billing, we think, wow, the power that it gives us to better understand the core economics of our business, what it takes to serve a client. And Jesus, billing will be easier for everyone involved, including the client, when it comes to, sort of greater electronic bill presentment and all the upsides. But you really just got to swallow hard on all of the upfront work and just step in, understanding it's going to touch everything in your business to some extent or other. So just don't shy away from that. This, the top right here, more people will spend more time on this than anyone imagines up front. That is really true. We were building our 2022 budget, 21, when we did the initial rollout, sort of phase 1 for us, which was the HR and financials piece of this. And the same at the end of 22 when we're budgeting for this year and the PSA components. This is going to be more disruptive to your folks than you will think up front. So you don't want to burn people out. You don't want them to quit. You also want to make sure that folks are spending enough time getting up to speed on the new platforms. They really need to understand the new platform first before you can effectively build your new process. Now, Workday and any ERP platform is going to have their recommended processes, the sort of vanilla, gold processes that they're going to bring to you. But you have to, understand how well that will or will not work for you, which means your folks who are sort of leading the charge here have to come up to speed, a lot of training, lots of hands-on before they can then actually effectively re-engineer the processes and make sure they conform to the new system and vice versa. It just takes a ton of time. So who's going to do all of that day-to-day work? We ended up actually going out and bringing in some contractors to provide, a pressure release valve. We also brought in some specialists, some folks who had lived with Workday, because they were immediately going to know more than any of our folks would have known about the platform. And still, we had, scores, if not hundreds of people working 7 days a week for certain periods of testing and implementation. So it's just brutal. Know that up front, understand it, build it into your budget. I'm speaking to a lot of finance folks on the line here. So it's going to be more of an effort than you imagine, likely not, geez, that was easier than we thought. It's going to be the other thing. It's going to be harder than you thought. Communicating the why is critical, because there are going to be a lot of people who don't like change in general. Even if it gets into a better place 12 months down the line, they are going to be highly resistant to change. So you've just got to create your mantra and remind yourself and everyone across your entity why we are doing this. There's better days coming, and sorry, pardon our dust. We've got to change things up here. That's why, step 6 in that whole roadmap was communication. You just got to really build your plan and stick with it. And then uncertainty does reign, because you will not be able to figure everything out up front. Got to be very agile and just ready for things that you weren't expecting. And we have things crop up almost every week. Some of them are DEFCON 3, and some of them are DEFCON 1. And you just got to be agile and go with the flow. But know that coming in as well. It's also a key part of the messaging, especially to leadership at your organization. Like, they should recognize that this is going to be a bit of a bumpy ride. It's too complex to completely nail down and make 100% predictable. So, everyone's in it together, and let's just make sure we're upfront about that. So these are some key things that we learned. Carrie, what else do you see from other folks you deal with?
Yeah, and in addition to communicating the why, I would add communicating the what's in it for me. So as I was going through a significant amount of change, you mentioned billing. That was also the area where there were folks on the team that I experienced were having sort of I would say a hard time absorbing or working through the change. And so at the time, I ended up reading this book called Switch. It's a little bit older now, but it was really helpful because it provided the different types of personalities and how you can navigate the what's in it for me for those personalities. So I think just identifying what motivates people and framing it in the way of, this is why we're doing this, and this is how it's going to beneficially impact you. You're going to be less frustrated if you're not, manually keying in bills and there's, room for error, and then you have to correct those errors, providing the insights. I was working at the time with AR billing and collection specialists, which, had 20 years of experience, and just, showing them that, hey, you have so much experience, you where the bodies will be buried. So it will, you're going to be in the best position to analyze and, analyze what's happening versus, being that person to manually enter it. So just kind of framing it, the what's in it for me, in addition to the why is quite helpful.
Awesome. Thank you both. On to polling question number 4. All right. What are the greatest barriers to moving to a more effective financial systems? Budget or cost, the will to make the significant changes, insufficient fintech talent, or unclear ROI? Okay, just give a few more seconds here. All right, I'll go ahead and end the poll here. Any last ones? I see a couple trickling in. I just like to make sure everyone get their CPE here. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right.
Unclear ROI, that's a really interesting one. Yeah, I mean, does there have to be a burning platform, or how close do you have to be to the burning platform to like get this passed? And then, yeah, budget, unsurprising number 2 here. You know, these things they're not cheap undertakings. And it's not always that the newer system is more expensive inherently, but you've got to get there from here. And that implementation with, you know, all the work and all the hours burned internally and externally, and then all the integrations with just the, you know, the rest of your technology stack. Wow. So these are all big issues. Hopefully, if the ROI is clear, you'll have the will. And what we found on the insufficient talent thing is, you know, when you move into a brand new system, you're not going to have all the knowledge about that system. You know, your existing system inside and out and all of its peccadillos, but just making the new system work basically can be a real challenge. That's one not to sleep on, and you know, using some third parties maybe for some staff augmentation to help you get up to speed quicker. Something that we use to good effect. We recognized we were going to be at a deficit for a while, and it just takes quarters for people to learn how this new thing ticks. So interesting responses there.
Thanks, John. All right, next we have results and next steps.
All
yeah,
right.
you know, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so kind of bringing us home here. We've heard the how and the why. We've heard some of our kind of lessons learned on, you know, change being hard and some of the things that you really need to put an extra level of focus on to be a success. So let's shift a little bit and we've heard Armanino's live on HCM payroll and financials. That was kind of the phase 1 and adaptive. And then phase 2, we will soon be live on PSA. So let's focus a little bit on outcomes. So love to hear from you. What are some of those early results that we're seeing? And what does the future for us look like now that we're on the platform?
Yeah, well, one of the most obvious things was we cut our time to close the books roughly in half. Now with PSA, you know, probably took us a couple quarters to get there, but we're looking to close it, to cut it in half again, which will just be amazing. I mean, it is like a starting gun goes off when you're done delivering their close, then everyone can get to their projects and start doing like deeper, more value add work. So we just can't wait. Every day of the month that we can recapture is, you know, hard value for the firm. So that's great. And this whole process is huge. It's a 2-putt for us. So great impact on phase 1. We're looking for the same in phase 2. There's no doubt that phase 1, one of these interesting things about collapsing more of your core into one platform is it does change your vocabulary and how you think about your financials. That's been really useful, and we're changing the vocabulary of the whole firm and certainly the leadership so that we have a more useful economic understanding of how things impact our financial results. So looking for more of that. PSA is going to be another just giant leap for the firm. New vocabulary, and I think clearer vocabulary and better and deeper understanding for how the firm ticks and what drives sustainable, profitable growth and value creation, which is the name of the game for our firm. So all of that is coming together, and we've certainly seen better after phase one and looking for greatness after phase two. And then, having this unified system is going to make us more agile. Actually, we're already seeing that. And we've, had a few transactions this year, and they've been easier to deal with. It's always tough bringing someone who was on whatever their platform was into your platform. But I find that to be a great proof point. And if you can get that up and going really quickly, that tells you got a lot of things moving in the right direction, and that the core of your systems are inherently usable and scalable. So that's great, definitely supporting our growth, and we certainly look to more of that kind of growth here. Yeah, efficiency and productivity, that speaks right to the cutting things in half again on the close, but also just making self-service easier for our internal clients, and of course making it quicker and easier for our finance organization broadly to respond to requests. So the results have been great. It's definitely taken some headaches and heartache to get there, and it's never quite what you think it was thought it was going to be, but very well worth it for us, and we're stoked that we've undertaken this, even more stoked to almost be done.
Awesome. Great, thanks. All right, last polling question here. All right, polling question 5. Are you choosing a major financial system upgrade in the near future? Yes, very interesting. Are you considering? Sorry, I think I read that wrong. Are you considering a major financial system upgrade in the near future? Yes, very interested. Yes, but not right now. No, not interested or not sure. All right, I'll give a few more seconds here. All right, ending the poll. And here's the results.
Yeah, I would certainly expect those 11+ year folks to be in the very interested. It's just hard to move with those older architectures. So interesting. The technology does not sit still.
Yeah, definitely doesn't. Thanks, John. All right, so that kind of wraps up our presentation, but we did get a few questions in here if we have a couple more minutes here on the webinar. So this is kind of for you, John and Carrie. Were there any people or organizations resistant to change?
Oh yeah. And we had a lot of folks who have been doing the same thing on the same systems for ages. And I guess there's always a fear that, like multifold. Number one, will it be worse for me? Is it going to take me more time? Do I have to learn something new? The answer is yes. Everyone has to learn something new. So there's that fear. Is it going to make things better or worse for my clients? And, Lord knows we never want that to be the case. We can ill afford for that to happen. But there's definitely a continuum. Some folks are more change ready and change willing than others. And yeah, you got to just really lead some folks along. It can be painful. And actually, I would say that we probably knew who those folks were before we even announced we were making the change. They're the same folks who are resistant to all the system or process changes that you make, and they're there and they're a reality. And you've got your ROI pitch honed when you can bring them along too. So that's all part of kind of preparing for the ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we kind of have another one that's similar that came in. Knowing that there are going to be people unhappy / opposed to transformation, no matter the level of communication, who would you identify as the key buy-ins needed?
Well, it, the key business leaders in the areas most directly impacted. Now, with something this significant, every area of the business is going to be impacted. So we have our operating leadership team, as we refer to it here, which is the senior leadership of our firm. And they had to be convinced first. That's sort of the vanguard. And you need those influencers on board. First off, you have to run the phalanx there, right? And answer their questions and make sure you're meeting their definitions around ROI and effort and things like that. That's tough to get through. When you're past those folks, then you've got these remainders who, yep, you still have to convince, but now you've got allies to do it. You get the CEO of the company on board and you get the partner in charge of the tax org on board. Well, it's a lot easier to get the tax folks behind you, et cetera. So I guess it's go after the toughest ones first, and then it'll be easier from there.
Awesome. That's a great answer. There's a couple more here. Were you required to create a hard ROI to justify this project?
A pretty darn hard ROI. It's tough to do, a hard ROI. Boy, you ask CFOs what that means, and you'll get a lot of different answers. Frequently, it's, we could take X heads out of the organization. But when you're in a growth entity, and Armanino is really a growth company, then it's about, what additional growth and value creation does it enable? And you still have to put pen to paper around that. And we did that. It's tough, but it is doable. You really have to break down the value creation of the firm. How is it you're creating more value, more clients, deeper ability to monetize, driving higher margins, all of those things. How are we going to positively impact all of these sort of revenue creating and margin delivering parts of the business to create real value that can then be the R, part of the ROI equation? So it takes time, it takes thought. Once again, got to talk to all of those key leaders who are the key stakeholders and get them through it. It's not trivial. And by the way, when you do that up front, I just guarantee you're going to have more success in reaching that ROI post-implementation. So, and we find this actually every time we do, an M&A transaction, is that the deeper and more closely we work with, our M&A partners there, the more successful the transaction is, just absolutely every time. So this is one of those things, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, do this stuff up front. Take the time. It's tough. You have to use your imagination. There is math involved, sorry, but it really pays off, because then as you're doing the implementation, you're thinking about the value creation and that return that you need to drive. And it really makes you dot those I's and cross those T's. It's just incredibly valuable. So difficult, but valuable. Terry, any other thoughts you want to add there?
No, I mean, touching on an ROI, like you said, is quite a challenge. But what I've often seen customers do is think about, in addition to ROI, like benchmarks, right? So things that are easy to measure, like days to close, or hours to bill. So tying that to, we get invoices out to our clients or our customers faster. Well, that then means that they're our customers or clients aren't chasing us for that invoice, right? So, not just tying it back to the dollars and cents, but also what that actually means in terms of translation to customers or employees.
Awesome. Well, I think that about wraps up our presentation today. Any other last comments, questions? Feel free to email experts@Armanino, or we'll give you direct links to John and Carrie's emails as well. We really appreciate everyone coming on today and spending our afternoon or morning or whatever time it is, wherever you are. But thanks a lot. And thanks, Carrie, John, Justin. We'll see you guys soon.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks all.
Thank you all.
All right, bye.